building to this. The population here in Buxton, according to our tracking data, took about 3 or 4 years to build to these numbers. So it took off very rapidly, what I would consider very rapidly there. It was kind of shocking how explosive the population could grow there, where we're catching 25,000 moths. I don't want to be all doomsday, Chicken Little thing here. We're not going to go out this summer and see dead trees all over the place, but if we do these kind of treatments, we can push these populations back down before they start building up to these kind of numbers. And I think it's very important for all the reasons I said, with the caterpillars in your yard and killing trees and the regulatory effects, removing trees and nursery stock logs and all that kind of stuff. It's very important that we treat. So with that, I'll finish my presentation part. I would be glad to answer any and all questions you guys have. Yes, sir.
Because in the areas up in the northeast where the gypsy moth's been around for a while, what are the trees like there? How active are they, or how deep back?
Yeah, there's a lot of places in, I go to meetings with my colleagues very frequently, yearly. We talk about these things. So the people from Pennsylvania, New York, and New Jersey will come down and talk about this. And when they have public meetings, they do what they call suppression there. We're more oriented toward eradication here. We're trying to kill these populations out before they get bad, to where we can only suppress them. So they'll have surveys. They'll set a few traps out just to see where great numbers are. And either somebody calls and says, I have a lot of gypsy moths in this neighborhood, or they catch some. They'll go back out and do egg mass counts. And if the egg mass counts are high enough, they can anticipate that the next spring they're going to have a big outbreak. So if all the people in the neighborhood want to get together and do a treatment, they have different ways of sharing the cost. This whole program here is funded through state and federal government. So there's no cost to any landowners here in the area directly through that. But in that area, they have different ways of doing this. It depends on the jurisdiction, but oftentimes people pay $50 an acre for their land, and then the government will match that, and they'll get together and get a contract for this type of treatment. So they try to suppress it in places as much as they can afford.
So it's kind of an ongoing effort.
Very much an ongoing effort. There are places, like the picture I showed you is in Pennsylvania where they've had the defoliation. They've had impact. It's come down to the Shenandoah Valley along the ridges there, and the Shenandoah on the Skyline Drive up there. It really blew through about 10 years ago and caused a lot of defoliation. And I think that opened a lot of eyes in Virginia as to what the problem could be. So a lot of it depends on funding. This treatment block that we have here is, again, it's very big and aggressive to try to, because of the situation here. Funding is tight. Forest health protection is not the highest priority in the federal government these days. They suffer a 5% cut in the latest budget. It's got passed in Washington in December. So North Carolina is a fairly high priority for gypsy moths. So we have a lot of promises from the U.S. Forest Service that they will orient a lot of their resources toward us. But be that as it may, if funding becomes an issue, then some of these treatment blocks, we have 14 treatments across North Carolina this year that we're proposing. So it's a very big year actually for that. Last year and the year before we had 3 in each of those years. So this is kind of an outbreak year. The funding is tight, so some of these things could get either eliminated or cut back. And we anticipate this one will survive in some form, not the whole 26,000 acres, at least a good portion of that. Yes?
When are you going to know effectiveness, and if you're not sure if it works, would the next step be spring BT?
Well, any of those tools are on the table for follow-up treatments. When we apply pheromone like that, it masks any trapping that's done in 2016. We'll put out a few traps just to see, just to have some data in the block. 2017 is when we can start to evaluate. And so we'll trap in 2017 extensively throughout this block. And then we would follow up on anything that indicated high numbers that could potentially be another treatment in 2018. Most of the time, these treatments, in my experience, are very effective. They can be follow-up treatments in as little as 3 years. Sometimes it takes 20 years. Sometimes it's completely effective forever. But if you remember the way it's coming down through Virginia, there's going to be a whole lot more pressure on there. So there could be reinfestations occurring over time. This large an area all of a sudden, like I said, it's an outbreak year, so this large an area is kind of unusual to have a first year going big like that, where I can't recall any treatments being done up here. I wasn't involved with the statewide program through the years, but I don't remember anything in this area. We treated in Nash County, several blocks, as I recall, back in the 90s, and we haven't had to retreat in those areas.
Is this the northernmost extent that you've seen them come in North Carolina?
Northernmost extent? Well,
Yeah, the highest amount near the
Oh.
Virginia line.
well, we treat along the Virginia line all the time, especially down toward above Greensboro, Rocky County, Caswell counties, Person County over that way, Warren County. There's been a lot of pressure on those areas for gypsy moth. We've treated, I used to work in the Greensboro area, so I know that area the best. And 25 years I was there, we probably had treatments there for 18 years in those areas north of there. So there's been, for some reason, they're coming down. They tend to follow a lot of, they like birch a whole lot. So they have a lot of birch bottoms through there, and they just follow those rivers and streams where the birch is and do really well. So, as it's coming down from Virginia, most of the treatments are going to be along the Virginia line. This year we have treatments all the way down to Pender County, which is just north of Wilmington. And Brunswick County, there's some indication something may be going on down there in the southernmost county in the state. The coast has a lot of pressure from tourism, a lot of campers and boats and things like that, trailers that move into there. So Hatteras Island, we've had numerous treatments all along the Outer Banks over the years. Yes?
If we happen to be located in the buffer zone and we happen to notice an infestation and contact you, how soon might we get treatment also?
I mean, if you go out and see egg masses now and you contacted me, we could redraw the block to include you. And if it was a situation that was amenable to it, we'd even do a ground treatment. If you had, like I said, an isolated tree or something we could get to that was, we found just egg masses here, nothing around it, we could do an isolated treatment right there with ground equipment. It's not unusual, it's very unusual to find something like that. We've trapped all through this area every year for decades, since the early 70s we've been trapping in here, so year after year we have a pretty good indication of what's going on historically, and it's not perfect. Some of these populations can pop up pretty quickly. And again, funding is an issue. We can't trap all that we want to trap, but we're always following up on these areas. So hopefully we catch them too. In the back.
Chris, I appreciate the SDS program, but when you look at this from a long-term solution, it's not necessarily sustainable. So I'm curious what the government, specifically the federal government's long-term plan is here, because from everything that I've read on the Gypsy Moth program to try to contain them as well as eradicate them, they've really been pretty honest about saying that there's no chance of us eradicating them, at least today. So I'm assuming if you project this out for a long timeline, the SDS program is really just buying this time to find a solution in the future, whether that be assuming maybe some genetic solution through the land itself and the trees or something, or maybe some kind of hybrid solution, or come up with a parasite or something that we can come up with. So is that really what the SDS program is trying to do, just buy us time while we find a solution for the future?
Yeah. You answered your own question in a sense. This whole program is slowing the spread, so it's not stopping the spread. It's basically buying time for other things to be developed and some of these tools to be refined. Some of the things that are over the horizon are genetic, but they're more aimed toward the gypsy moth itself and not the host. So it's hard to predict what will be usable down the line, but there are very highly developed ways of manipulating genetics of gypsy moth in such a way that renders them sterile and the populations die out. That's a possibility. That's not something, I'm not in the knowledge, I'm not doing research on that kind of stuff, but I want to understand the technology about 10 years out where pest control can be done in that fashion. And other things, developing some of these natural enemies and such that are present in Europe, and importing them here and then having them work, testing them out very well to make sure they don't have any off-target effects. Those things are in development. So slowing it down is not a bad thing either, because having an infestation is awful. And so the more time we can buy from more people, not having that is good. Economically, it makes sense, and for the people who are outside of the treatment area or outside of the infestation area, it makes a lot of sense. So yeah, originally, the slide I showed you where it was every 10 years how far it was moving, the the rate of spread was about 20 miles a year naturally, or just overall, naturally and artificially. And the program has slowed that spread down to about 8 miles a year, so 6 to 8 miles a year. So it's effective over the 25 years or so that it's been working, and that's what we're trying to do by time.
Do you guys employ multiple techniques when the infestation, this is probably more applicable to northern states, but will they employ multiple techniques versus picking one or two over the other?
Well, we'll do different treatments based on trap catches and population levels. For instance, in a couple of places in North Carolina, we have a core infestation that's somewhat high, surrounded by a lighter infestation. And so we will go into the core and treat with BTK aerially, which is more effective at just killing them and stopping them when they're young from doing the damage. See, mating disruption is not effective until after the caterpillars have become adult males, so they've fed, and just trying to keep them from reproducing for the next year. And so we'll use different tactics based on the populations and the effectiveness and the funding, really. I mean, even with limitless funding, I don't think we could kill a gypsy moth off. And back in the day, when it was a very small area up in the Northeast, they had some pretty heavy-duty stuff they're using, lead arsenate, things like that. That, you can imagine using. I mean, gone through DDTs would be something they used, and the tools that we use are relatively very, very harmless compared to that kind of stuff. And even when they had such strong tools, they couldn't kill it off and push it back. So that's the future.
And I'll stop with this question, but so let's assume that we get a bad infestation, the government doesn't have money and funds to control this. Will they at least alert the population and give them an opportunity to control it?
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine a population getting so bad that we would just have to let it go. It would be pretty doomsday for, there's always been some level of funding and some concern, and, I would encourage people to contact your legislators or whoever to express your concern about this. If the situation gets so dire that we can't afford to treat high populations of gypsy moth where they're causing that kind of damage. That being said, inevitably it's moving south, and so, I don't know what the time horizon will be for it coming through here and becoming to the level where suppression rather than eradication. Then it becomes, how many dollars you have to spread to which effort, and then how much. Again, like I say, in some municipalities in the Northeast, it's cooperative. People will either be taxed or they'll pay a levy on their acreage to have these treatments done. So there's different tools, and we would interact certainly with the public to get feedback and be able to spread our resources where they're needed and involved. Okay.
Yes, how will the weather affect the treatment?
In the case of mating disruption, the only time you can't treat is if it's real windy or if it's actively raining, if the leaves are like dripping wet, because the flakes will come down with the glue, and if the leaves are wet, they'll fall off with the water. And then the planes have to be able to fly. So if it's foggy or rainy or windy, and the planes can't fly, that's the only effect that the weather would have on that. And if we're using something like BTK, or we don't really do Dimlin or mimic, but if you're doing a liquid application, which would potentially dry some of the felt, you couldn't have the very high temperatures or very low humidity because the droplets would evaporate before they came down. And then also with the wind, that being liquid, it would drift more. And so you don't want high winds to drift that off site. We can account for drift. The wind can be measured, and we know we've characterized how the sprays are done, how they come out of these aircraft. But again, we wouldn't spray greater than 8 to 10 miles an hour for BTK as a cutoff for that. But for mating disruption, it's just if the planes are able to fly safely.
Where will they be flying out of?
It's up to the contractor again, probably in Virginia. I think there's a big airport, is it Mountain Home or something like that that's up there? There's an airport that they fly out of when they do the Virginia mountain treatments. So probably out of there, but if there's a large airport near there, then they may choose that. But that's up to the contractors.
You did say the person worked in Nash County, didn't you?
Eradication did, yes. Yeah. I'd have to dig some records up to see when that was. That was a long, like I said, it was back in the 90s when I was a groundling back then. So
I remember just read about that. It was in the early 90s.
yeah, it's like up around Todd, I think there was some treatments out there. I remember there's 2 or 3 right there. It was kind of broke out and we fought it back.
Just what did the treatment do up there? Percentage?
Well, eradicated them. The one, you're talking about the ones back in the 90s?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was effective, completely effective. We trap every year after that. We trap at least for 3 years intensively where we do treatments to make sure that the populations aren't regenerating, try to catch them before they get going again. So those populations, we had almost nothing caught in Nash County last year. Just a few, I mean, very late, there's a little scattered up in there, here and there. But, you know, catching 1 or 2 moths in a trap is not unusual. It sounds kind of bad after what I've been saying about gypsy moth, but sometimes one just blows in somewhere, gets carried in on a piece of equipment or something, and it gets caught in a trap. And we incorporate that to our historical analysis. You know, if we come back in here and you come back next year, there's 10, and you look at, well, there's 1 or 2 there last year, then you know that you have a population starting to get going and it's starting to reproduce exponentially, and you keep an eye on that, or if it's not treated.
So it's the same treatment you used in Nash County?
I don't remember. I think it was probably BTK at that time because mating disruption using pheromone flakes was, I think it was developed after that. It was about 1990 or so before that started to be used. Or probably 1998 or so before that started to be used.
Does it affect groundwater?
No, it's not a poison or anything like that. It doesn't affect groundwater. It doesn't get into the groundwater. It doesn't soak in. It's just little plastic flakes and they just land on the ground. If they fell through the tree canopy and land on the ground, they just land on the ground and then degrade there. There's nothing in it. It's just pheromone.
What about streams and lakes?
Same type of thing. You know, this little flakes will land in the water. They'll eventually probably float to the edge. I don't think they float or sink, honestly. I think it would float. So fish might eat them, but it's non-toxic. It's an inert matter that these things are made of, or pheromone. It's a little bit of glue, which is, you know, it's not toxic, so no, that's toxic. So, you know, livestock haven't eat it. It's such a small amount and it's not toxic, so it's not effective, it's not harmful to them eating. Questions?
Yes.
You may have answered the question, but a similar question about any adverse effects on pets or livestock or gardens, anything else that it would touch?
And it wouldn't affect anything. I mean, it's a harmless material. Pets, I mean, if your cat was out or something and you got a couple of pieces on there with a little glue that gets stuck in her fur, so you have to comb it out or cut it out or something like that, that'd be the worst effect. I volunteer this. If it lands on your car, you want to wash it off. Soap and water will wash that off. These little blue flakes will land on your car, but they're so widespread. You know, we get our specialists more. We have ground people in the block. We'll have a couple people stationed here in the block in vehicles to monitor on the ground, make sure everything's okay, and be able to talk to people if people have questions. And as a ground person, I just get up underneath that, and it would fall in the car, and you just stop and you have to listen. You hear 2 or 3 pieces of land, and they're so widespread, it's hard to find them. So it's not, you know, we're talking that much over an area that's 210 feet on the square, over a whole acre. So that's not a lot of material in there. So, you know, you're talking 26,000 acres, but it's going to be 26,000 times that amount spread over probably 24,000. We don't spray over pastures, so we're cutting that area out. So it's probably a couple of thousand acres open land that we wouldn't treat. But that being said, you know, anything that landed on is not harmful. In your garden, if you had like a lettuce or something like that, it was leafy, you wouldn't have that in June probably, I don't think. But if you had something leafy that you're going to consume the exterior of, you probably want to wash it anyway, so you just wash it off and peel off the outer layer if you had that on there. It wouldn't soak into the vegetable or into your fruit or anything like that, cause any harm. Yes, sir.
What is the cost of this treatment?
Generally, it's about, I don't remember the exact number, it's about $30 an acre for the contractor. It's contracted, you know, again, through the U.S. Forest Service and the State Department of Agriculture and all these states combined, the cost together. The cost of the whole program nationally is less than $8 million. And this is for every one of these 10 states that do treatments like this, and do their treatments and their trapping too. Trapping is included in the cost of the program. I don't remember the figure off the top of my head what it is for North Carolina, but trapping and treatment is in $200,000 or $300,000. Don't quote me on that. It's going to be a little higher this year. Obviously, we have more acres this year than we had last year, so